So, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Guitar Gear Locker. And this is episode 13. And my name is Alex Brooks, and this is my co-host Roger Sutherland.
How
And
you
I
doing?
am happy to announce that my longtime friend and the legendary Pat Ranieri of the mighty Hellwitch. Welcome to the show, Pat.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Alex. Thank you,
Number
Rob. I'm glad to
13.
be here and bring some brutality to the festivities this evening.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great meeting you, and thanks for being with us.
Oh yeah, man. I'm very this is the first time I've done like a video thing about guitar and instrument things and equipment. I've never really delved too much into that, so it's very refreshing for me.
Nice.
Cool, man. Awesome. So I guess we'll just start with take us back to, how you got into music and what led you to pick up the guitar.
Well, I mean, I'll give you the short version. When I was little, down in the basement, before there was the torture chamber down there, my brother's record player was down there with the old time hard box full of 45s. And I thought the record player was a cool toy. So I'd put on the 45s. And I remember there were like the more upbeat things when I was like 5, and I'm like, oh, the songs that are kind of fast and peppy, I like that. And the ones that were slow and with singing and Perry Como type shit, I was like, oh, that's not really doing it. So started with that, then rode my bike to Osco Drugs in Chicago Heights, where I lived, and there was commercials on TV every 10 minutes. Don Kirshner presents Rock Power, featuring Alice Cooper, all the Doobie Brothers, Steppenwolf. And I was like, wow, that's cool, man. That sounds really cool. So I rode my bike to Osco and bought Rock Power, and that pretty much changed it. I was like, oh yeah, this kind of music is really good. This is really cool. And yeah, man, and then of course a little later on, found Kiss, found whatever kind of heavy stuff was on the radio. I remember being little and hearing Mississippi Queen and going,
oh yeah,
so cool. That's like the coolest thing ever,
Yeah.
Or no, like we're an American band. I was like, wow, that's so brutal and heavy. And well, I didn't say brutal back then, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then of course, I don't want to say like everybody, but then Kiss, I mean, I'd go to the Walgreens and the magazine rack in Walgreens, it was nothing but Kiss. Everything, music, everything was Kiss on the cover. So, big into that for a while. And of course, Zeppelin, Zeppelin would be above everything. Zeppelin, that's still kind of, above most everything. But Kiss, Zeppelin, and then, got a crappy Epiphone single coil pickup guitar when I was about 15. And from what I understand in the world of kind of metal and stuff, like I was a late bloomer. I got a guitar when I was 15, was, messing around till I was like 16, messing with this crappy Epiphone guitar. And then, I think for my 16th or 17th birthday, my parents got me a 77 Gibson Les Paul. And that, since it was such a cool guitar, and it was the guitar Jimmy Page had, that made me want to sit down and play more. So that really got me off and running, was getting that 77 Les Paul. And I just sat with my little Sears Silvertone amp in my practiced with that, and tried to pick up Ted Nugent and Kiss and stuff like that on the guitar the best I could. And of course AC/DC, that was for learning guitar. You can't beat AC/DC.
Right.
Yeah. Nice.
Four chords, and you got the whole world at your disposal.
Crazy how they took 4 chords and just arranged them into all kinds of different stuff.
Exactly.
That's insane.
Throw a couple single note variations there, and those 4 chords, and you got magic happening.
Yeah. You know,
Nice.
the other thing is we also find out how important Sears was back in the day. Like everybody had something from Sears, a silver tone,
Sears
a
and
Sears
Roebuck. Yeah,
guitar.
yeah.
I had a Sears guitar, Sears amps.
Really? I don't remember Sears guitars, but yeah, I would imagine they had the silver tone amps. So yeah, I'm sure they
Oh
had
yeah.
to.
Yeah. You know,
And
it's funny you bring up that 77 Les Paul, and I'm curious because when I first discovered you guys back in the 80s and in fanzines, when I was first seeing pictures of the original Hellwitch lineup, you played a Les Paul. Is that the same guitar?
that's that
That
guitar. I
Oh
still
wow.
have it right here in my house.
Get
Oh
out.
wow, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, never
Right.
changed a thing. It's all original. Everything on it is original. Everything like our first album was recorded. All the rhythms are with that
Oh,
guitar
okay.
and nothing.
Wow.
That guitar is all original, and that's how it's been.
Oh,
Wow.
nice. Yeah. And I remember you played an Explorer. Like when I first saw you play live back in I guess 1990, whatever it was. You had it was like a cream Explorer. Is that correct? That
Yeah,
you had back
it was actually white, but you know how
then?
that
Right.
white turns to,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
eventually yellow. But yeah, it was might have been cream at that stage of its existence. But yeah, man, I picked that up at at a music store in Fort Lauderdale down here, and it was another my second Gibson, and it had a bar, and the Les Paul didn't have the bar, and I wanted wanted the whammy bar, and
Yeah.
that floor, it was a cool body shape. I had never owned one. I didn't know how comfortable or uncomfortable it was going to be, but I was like, I want that guitar because it's a Gibson and it has a bar, so I'm buying it.
Right.
Yeah. Nice,
Nice.
nice.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's safe to say you're definitely a longtime Gibson guy. That's for sure, right?
I'm pretty much exclusive Gibson. I don't play anything else.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And
Nice.
early on, after the Les Paul had that for years, I was trying like, Charvel and, other brands and, Jackson and, of course, Fender before I got the Les Paul. I had tried a Strat and,
Mhm.
Ibanez, and none of them really. Whenever I tried like an SG, and I'm like, this is so comfortable. The Les Paul, besides the heaviness, the weight of the Les Paul,
Yeah.
like it's so comfortable to play. The Flying V, I'm like so comfortable to play, and I just that was it. I'm like, I don't need to shop around. I know what works for me.
Right.
Right,
Right.
right. Yeah.
How heavy is that Les Paul that you had?
Oh man,
It's got to
you
be like a
know,
boat anchor.
I look back and I look back at old videos of us from the 80s, and I'm like, how did I stand on stage with Hank for an hour and play music and scream my ass off? I'm like, how was I not dead on the floor? Because now I really like I put that on for a few 20 minutes, and I'm like, yeah, this is killing my shoulder. Like this is
Yeah.
Yeah,
just way
yeah,
uncomfortable. It's way
Yeah.
yeah,
uncomfortable. It's a big block of wood. It is a big block
Yeah.
of. I've never weighed it, but I mean, it has to be, at least 10 to 15 pounds.
Yeah.
yeah.
God,
They usually sound pretty good though, those heavy
Yeah.
Les Pauls. They usually sound pretty good though,
yeah.
those heavy Les Pauls.
And that was something. It's funny. I heard, I mean, not late, but later on, somebody said, oh well, the sustain on the Les Paul because of all the wood is a big difference compared to like a Flying V. And I'm like,
Mhm.
that doesn't matter. I'm like, the pickup pushes it, and the pickup if you got an EMG or something high gain, it's going to sound. And I did realize that, wow, the Les Paul has a lot of sustain due to all that wood. And I
Yeah.
kind of stupid. I'm like, wow, how did I have never, how did I not know this? But yeah, that was something I learned later on, that it is uncomfortable, but boy, the sustain is very. And I think of the Spinal Tap moment where the
Yeah. Just
sustain.
listen.
Listen, you still hear that one, but yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
the Les
yeah.
Paul had a lot of sustain, but yeah, it's the backbreaker, and I rarely pick it up at all anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is just I don't well, of course, being the guy that doesn't get up on stage and play, there's something really cool about a really heavy Les Paul. I
Yeah.
don't know why,
Yeah.
but that again, I don't have to stand up there for an hour like y'all do and play it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I can't do it.
like, I didn't think the Les Paul was, when I got into underground metal, like
Yeah.
oh man, no one's using a Les Paul. And I was a bit self-conscious about that for a little while,
Yeah.
and then I think I saw Amorphous using a Les Paul. And I'm like, okay, well, somebody else is using one, so it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I have one that
Yes,
comes in here periodically for a checkup, and it's a Black Beauty, 83,
Ooh,
and it's right around 12, maybe even a little over 12, and it's really cool, but
yeah.
it's really heavy.
Yeah. And it's weird. Somebody let me hold their Les Paul around 2014, and I don't know what year the guitar was, but it was light. It
Yeah,
was light. And I'm like, what the hell happened here? I'm like, this
yeah.
is Les Paul? What is this?
yeah. Yeah.
Different
Might be
trees.
might be chambered or something like
Yeah,
that
it
too. It could
probably
be
is.
chambered, you
It,
know.
what?
The inside like chambered, like cut
Oh,
out
yeah.
inside a bit, you know.
I've heard. I
Mm.
did hear that. I heard that afterward as well. That they hollow out certain parts of it for to make it lighter. And I said, well, that sucks. Like what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's a chintzy way to go.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
something and Alex and I kinda joke, like, sometimes we get caught up in the it looks like we don't like Gibson. I love Gibson guitars, but I really like Gibsons. What I don't like is I don't like Gibson. I had somebody call me about one yesterday. I don't like when the couple years they went to the dip switches and all that. Had somebody call me about one, they were getting ready to buy one yesterday, and I was like, yeah, not my thing. I just like four CTS pots, some orange drops, a good old wiring, no PC boards, the good old Gibsons.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know a lot of that terminology, but yes, I believe in wiring and the pot
Yeah, yeah,
wires and it's soldered together. And I mean, even I think in one of mine, I had the kit where all the wires just kind of plugged on. I
yeah,
needed like one solder joint in the whole thing to put the
yeah,
EMGs in, or yeah, I think it was to put the EMGs in it. But
yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's all I really know about is that.
Yeah, this one, the one that he called me about, there's one that you open up the cavity and there's these little switches. It's like for this sound, flip this little switch and this.
Uh,
Once they got into that electronic stuff, they've since gone away from that.
okay.
So yeah,
And,
just a good old down and dirty
yeah.
Gibson Les Paul.
And I mean, who can forget that the V2 or whatever that was? It
Oh, the
looked
V2,
like
yeah.
the
Yeah.
Star Trek emblem. It looked like the Star
Yeah,
Trek emblem.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was
I
like,
think they
what?
were like in the early
Huh?
80s or something like they came out with those. If I'm
That?
correct.
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I remember seeing Mike from Destruction in that first promo
Oh,
video, and he had the V with like the heart shaped pickups, and I
I
was like,
played
wow,
that guitar.
really cool.
I played
Huh?
that guitar. I played that V. I played that
Oh,
guitar.
oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a long time ago, but
Oh my God.
I went and met them and saw them play, and it was after the gig. And, I was talking to Mike about the guitar and the V, and I was like, check it out. He's like, yeah, absolutely. And I was just,
Oh
it was
wow.
cool,
That that's
yeah.
really cool, man. Yeah, I always thought that was a really cool looking guitar, man. I thought that was,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love
But you know
you.
what? He said sounded like shit. They looked cool, but they sounded like shit.
Yeah, I
So
heard. I was
yeah.
gonna say I just watched a YouTube video about flying V's like a couple months ago, and I forgot most of it, but I remember the the guy doing the video, was like, "Oh, that guitar, look, they made it with this, and the strings have to come through here," and he's like, "It's
Yeah,
this." That and it has these like brass rings around the pickups or something. It was a lot of kind of like they had to cut into the where the neck meets the body. It's like the neck had to
right.
be cut out for the tip of the pickup to be sticking in there, and it was
Oh,
like, oh, it was a really kind of good design in some ways.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So let's get into, the early days of when you started Hellwitch, and the vision that you had, because because I remember discovering you guys, and it was through tape trading, and I think I might have told you the story. It was a live show of you guys, and I was just like, what the fuck, like it was like Torture Chamber, I think. What was it? One of them, maybe Nosferatu, songs like that. It was the instrumental off the first
Fade at
demo.
End.
Yeah, yeah. So, where, because you guys, and I don't think you guys get the credit sometimes, that you guys deserve, because you guys were one of the first really extreme metal, death thrash, whatever you want to say, bands that came out in Florida. I would say you guys, Death and Morbid Angel, and but your riffs were like really fucking twisted, and I'm just kind of curious, like, when you started the band, was your vision basically to be super extreme, or was it kind of an evolution over time of becoming more aggressive and
Mm.
more chaotic in the riffs and stuff like that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, at first, I mean, it was, getting into tape trading. And I mean, I was lucky. I met guys here in South Florida in like 81, and they were already tape traders. So I met them, and that, changed my life. They had, the metallic, they had No Life Till Leather, and they had the Angel
Mm.
Witch first album, and they had, Venom, they had everything, all, Merciful Fate. And that, I that's when I went from like strumming the guitar to like, wow, I need to pick like Metallica picks on Whiplash,
Yeah, yeah.
need to get that going. And then
Mm.
then the show No Mercy came out, and heard about it, got it right away. And that really was inspiring for me. And then came up with Nosferatu with my old roommate Harry in college when we were at UF. We both kind of collaborated, and I came up with all the music, and he came up with that title and some of the lyrics. And it was like a first attempt at writing a song. And I'm like, well, that kind of sucks. I mean, listen to Slayer and listen to that. I'm like, that's garbage. And then the next song I wrote was Satan's Wrath, which was
Satan's Wrath, yeah.
Satan's Wrath, which was, I was in a big Merciful Fate kick then, and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of, I'm like, oh, I want to, have a song like kind of like a heavy, slow Merciful Fate song. And so then there was Satan's Wrath, and then the next, where I really, started to think, I want things to be a little more, where, I mean, I noticed some bands that I liked where the song would have kind of downtime. There'd be parts of the song where it wasn't go, 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 or it wasn't really punching me in the face. And I'm like, oh, I want to write songs that just keep go, go, go. And, that way, it'll really kick people in the face, and, keep the listener's interest. So that then came Torture Chamber, and then the instrumental you mentioned, Fate at Pain's End.
Hmm.
Was Fate at Pain's End was inspired like by one of those songs on Hell Awaits, like either At Dawn They Sleep or Crypts of Eternity, where it went from part to part to part to part, and just kept going and going through different parts and different parts. And I was like, by that point, I'm like, yeah, I want to. This is the direction. This is what I want to do. And then yeah, it all kind of followed from there. And then of course, on the '87 demo, Purveyor of Fear and Pyrophoric Seizure, even more,
Hmm.
were even more
More,
extreme.
yeah.
And then the time came for the first album, and Viral Exigence and Mortarivial Dissemination, and stuff like
Hmm.
that, even more, pushed it even more.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, didn't really have a formula, just knew what I liked, and kind of what I thought what I didn't like about some bands that I thought were good. And I'm like, well, what could they do better? What would make, what would make songs better in general? What would make music better? And I tried to, go out and then listen back. I'd write it and listen to it and say, yeah, well, here it seems like it's just, the song's lagging a little bit. Let's beef up that part or beef up this part or just cut out this part and go from this part to this part. And well, there we go. You're on the floor.
Ooh,
All right.
shit.
There we go. Look at that.
I feel like he just kicked us in the
face. There we go. Yeah, man.
That's exact. There you go.
Smash that tripod right to the
Look
floor.
at that, man. You crashed.
I did.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me get readjusted here, gentlemen. I'm Uh-oh. I think you might have
shit.
Uh-oh. Things are off
Much
the rails.
metal.
Things are off the rails.
Can I leave this in?
As far as I'm concerned, yeah, man. It's the human element. It's the human element.
That's right, man. Look, he got so excited about telling us that story.
We don't have to Pro Tools up the video. We can just
Yeah.
but yeah, man. So that that was kind of my deal. And another thing before I forget was I always noticed how with Zeppelin, every song was kind of different, like no of their songs like the same style. They kind of had an overall sound, but every song was like a different style. And when, Syzygial Miscreancy was composed, I was working on those songs and whatever. In my back of my head, I was always thinking, I want this to be like a Zeppelin album. Like every song has a different kind of beginning. Every song has a different kind of layout. Every song has a different structural pattern to it, and a different structure. Sure. No two songs sound like the same thing. They're all very diverse. Right. And that was important to me. And I, looking back, I'm like, yeah, I definitely, those songs, no two really sound the same. They all sound, all over the place.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your records take, I when I listen to them and it's just like you'll have like, some acoustical parts or whatever. And, but it's always dark, and that's the thing. And and that's interesting how you said about like, the transition from the first demo to the second demo to the first record. I mean, but things definitely got more, definitely it got more aggressive, but also more technical, a little bit more progressive, I think, over time too, especially when you compare to the first demo.
Yeah.
And, but can you talk, I don't know if you can remember when you recorded the first record, which I believe you did it at Morrisound, I think, right? The first one was on that. Yeah, Scott Burns. Yeah. And do you remember what the rig you were using, to record that record?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, first let me mention. I like to mention this because we booked the time, in '89, and that was still a time where you could call Morrisound to book time, and you could request, well, can Scott engineer it for us, or can Tom, hey, you could just say, hey, we want to come in and pay the hourly studio rate, and we want this guy to record it for us. And they were like, sure, no problem, because those guys hadn't really, blown up yet. So we were lucky enough to book the time. And I said, and yeah, could we get Scott Burns to, engineer the album for us? And whoever took my information, they're like, no problem, man. Yeah, Scott'll do your recording for you. So that was really cool. But like I said, I used the stock 77 Les Paul with the chrome plated dual coil humbucker pickups for all the rhythms and all like the rhythm harmonies. And I didn't really have a good guitar amp at that point. So a friend of mine had a Marshall MOSFET, and we had heard that's what Scott Ian was using. That's what he used on the SOD album. And I remember then thinking, even then I was like, oh man, the SOD guitar sound is just so massive and so,
Oh, what? Yeah.
Huh?
I say it was definitely, you know,
So
yeah, it
my
was huge.
his lent me the MOSFET and went to Morrisound, and Scott said, well, we have a JCM 800 that we rent for like $40 a day. Would you rather use that? And I was like, no, I'm like, I want to go with this MOSFET. I know that's what, what's used on the SOD album. And I go, it's a good sound and I'd rather go with that. And he's like, okay. He's like, we can definitely make it work. And so I set up my sound, and Scott went over and he said, oh, here, let me give you a little more mid, and let me turn your mid up a little, and and he adjusted a few things, and I'm like, I go, that doesn't sound quite, and he goes, on the recording it will sound great. And I said, very good, whatever you say, that's what we'll do. And
Yeah.
so yeah, man, we let Scott tweak the knobs on the amps and get the sound. I mean, set up the sound, and then he adjusted things a little. It was the root of it were my settings, and then he fine tuned things. Like he said, to make it sound to cut through better on the recording. And so that was it for that. And then that white Explorer 84 Explorer, which had an EMG 84 or 81, I'm not sure, in the treble, in the bridge position, that was used for all the solos on the album. So those two
Right.
guitars, and both of them were through the MOSFET.
Nice, nice.
Cabinet was like a Marshall, JCM 800 412 cabinet regular.
Right, right.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
Well,
Nice.
and
Awesome.
Alex has mentioned the dark sound a couple times, the dark sound that you all have. You're tuned in standard E tuning, right?
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
use any drop tunings.
No. I mean, when I, was learning guitar, there was nobody really tuned down. Like AC/DC was, regular tuning, and
Right.
the bands I listened to, they were all, Kiss, it was all regular tuning. And I mean, I heard about that when,
Right.
we started going, and, the band started going, and, Slayer tuned. I remember it was like Slayer tuned down 1 fret or something like that. And I remember I tried it and I just didn't like it. It
Right.
sounded,
Yeah.
and it didn't sound right. And it rubbed me the wrong way. And, I was like, no, the regular tuning sounds good. And I like that the way it is.
Wow.
Yeah. That makes
Wow.
sense
That's
too,
interesting.
because you're picking and all the intricate riff and stuff like that. If it was tuned down, I don't think it would come across properly, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Later on, I had, decades later, someone say, when we went to record the 2005 Epitome of Disgrace promo CD, the engineer then, he's like, wow, he's like, you're just standard tuning. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, these riffs are gonna sound so clear and so heavy. He's like, that's great. He goes, it's gonna sound perfect, like, because you're standard tuning. He's like, everything's gonna be totally distinguishable and decipherable. And he goes, everyone will be able to make out every note of every riff. And
Hmm.
I'm like, and yeah, and then
Nice.
he made the point of, yeah, when you tune down, you lose a little bit.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
You
And it's
can.
funny you say, that you can
Um,
hear everything. And on that recording, on the first Hellwitch record, if you compare it to, a lot of the other records that were recorded around that time period at Morrisound, a lot of those records sound really compressed. Where your record, you can hear everything, but it's also still got that dirty and nastiness to it too,
Yeah.
and it's kind of a different sounding record, especially even for Scott Burns, I think. And I mean that as a compliment because you
yes,
know from our scene at the time, we were just kind of like anti going there because everybody was going there, and we wanted this real raw sound. And you guys, I felt were like the band that really got it right. Coming out of the Morrisound back then.
yeah,
You
man.
know,
I still to this day chalk a lot of that up to that stock, you know, chrome-plated Gibson humbucker pickup, because I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
not really known for metal, and I liked it, but I mean, and at that point I had heard about EMGs and knew of them, but I was like, oh well, I'm used to this, it sounds good to me, it sounds clear to me, and I'm just going to stick with that. And I think a good part of it is I used a pickup that really, who else was using that pickup?
Right.
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny you say that. It's like, you got this old PAF pickup and a Gibson and getting that nasty like sound the way it came out on that. It's interesting because I always thought you might have been using like the Explorer for the rhythms or something like that. So I didn't know that you used that Les Paul. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
But it also, really, people talk about pickups and all this kind of stuff, and it's like really tone is in the hands, and it's a way you attack the guitar, and I've always been from that school of picking, aggressive picking, and precision in the picking and stuff like that, and yeah, you guys really got it right. That record still today stands the test of time. It's an absolute classic. But let's fast forward to the new record, because the new record seems to be kind of like a continuation of that album. And I have to say, from being a longtime fan of the band, that it's like I can't decide on which record's better. I mean, that new record is so damn good, man. It's like I've listened to it a zillion times already, and man, it's and it's hard for a band that's been around for a long time to really kind of because like talk about Slayer, and it's like for me, it's just like Show No Mercy, Haunting the Chapel, Hell Awaits, and they this never really kind of captured that 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 vibe and that pure aggression that they had. And when you listen to the new Hellwitch record, it still sounds like a hungry, pissed off band.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so can you kind of take us into a little bit of the writing of the record, and if there was a vision behind before you started writing the record?
Well, you know, to our detriment, we're not really too strong with regularly putting out a new album. And I take responsibility for that, because sometimes I just don't feel like, working on songs. I feel like just maybe practicing what we already have, and I don't really feel like I don't feel anything coming that is, I'll come up with stuff and I'll be like, oh, that's whatever. That riff's whatever.
Mhm.
This riff is whatever, and I'll just trash it. So there's points where went a year or so, couple of years, where didn't really come up with much music because wasn't really feeling it, or didn't spend enough time to really try to come up with something worthwhile that I thought was worthwhile. So that album really, I mean, it's, well, like I've said this before, but it spans uh from 1985 to 2023. I
Yeah,
mean, the songs on there are span like almost 40 years. um and yeah, I mean, Torture Chamber, um
Chamber.
yeah, Torture Chamber was always meant to have like an intro like it has on the new album. And just time wise at Morrisound, and budget wise, and technologically speaking, we couldn't really have an intro like I wanted. And now finally I said, Torture Chamber needs to have a proper presentation. It needs to sound the way I've always envisioned it to sound, with this proper intro. And the way just the way the picking was on kind of on the demo. The
Mhm.
picking, it was fast, but it wasn't all right in the ballpark of being on. And I'm like, the picking need tight, the intros need to be there, it needs an overall good production, needs some respect. So through
Right.
Torture on there. And then the song Hellwitch, which is from 1985, which I had a one-man demo. I did a demo with two guitars and vocals and didn't quite finish it, and then listened to it back, then in 85 after a couple months, and I'm like, this sucks. I'm like, this just sucks. And I just shelved it and left it alone. And then when we put out the 30th anniversary 10 LP box set, I was gathering recordings for that, and I listened to that demo of the song Hellwitch from 85, and revisiting it, now I don't know if it's because everything is so downhill, this many years later, but I heard it and I isn't really that bad. I can, I see where I can do something with this part and brush this up and add maybe a new part that sounds old here and put it all together and, make it into something substantial. And so I brought that back to life. And then, in between 85 and then now, over the last few years, Delegated Disruption, I spent a couple of years working on that. And Epical Cessation was another one written probably in the last year and a half before recording the album, during the last year maybe. And Solipsistic Immortality, that was probably from around 2018, 2019, started to work on that and get that going. And then Megalopolyptic Confine is, from our At Rest, and those two songs, At Rest and Megalopolyptic Confine, again, those were just on that 7-inch, which wasn't really great production. So, through those, and let's see, I know I'm forgetting something in there, but it was like a culmination of songs from different eras. But I mean, the newest songs on there, I was pretty happy with, and I'd go back and listen to them. And my personal test is I'll come up with something and then listen to it days later, listen to it again like a week later, listen to it a couple weeks later, and if I still think it's pretty uphill, I'll stick with it. But most times I'll come up with something, late at night, and then days later I'll listen and I'll say, what the hell was I thinking? This sucks. This is just generic bullshit. And so I'll trash it. And those songs are really, I spent the time and put them, vetted them, and they stood the test, and they stood up to the interview, and they made it through to the hiring.
Now, how do
But
you
as far as what you said about like what I envision, I'll tell you, gentlemen, I don't really ever have like a vision. It's just trying to be interesting and good and sound like other bands. I always,
yeah,
that's if I'm hearing something that that sounds Slayerish, or that sounds like, that sounds a little Morbid Angelish or whatever. A lot of times, mostly I'll be like, yeah, no, it sounds like this, so we can't use it. It's not original enough.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Now, you've been doing this.
Huh?
You've been doing this a long time. How do you think, like from when you got started? Yeah, exactly.
40.
How do you, from when you got started, your songwriting and the music and the intensity of the music, how do you think it's evolved? Is it like as your perspectives change as we get older, does it affect the way you write music now or your attack on the music? Seems like it got harsher.
Yeah. No, you know what? Because I mean, it may be a good thing, but I don't really listen to much new music that's coming out. I mean, I
Right.
listen to music in my vehicles pretty much, and
Right.
I go with pretty much, mostly older stuff, or I mean, up to stuff in the late '90s I'll listen to, but
Yeah.
really listen to newer stuff, and I just stay focused on what I make up, sounding interesting. I just try to,
Right.
together so it sounds cool, and and it sounds like not, you hear it and say, wow, these guys don't sound like other bands from 2024 or
Right.
2020. These guys sound like something else. And
Yeah,
that's
that's cool.
kind of where I'm at, and and again, we went into getting all these songs ready without really having an album deal. And I just was
No.
like, I want to hear them. I want to put it out. I don't care if it's on a label or not, or if it's self-financed or not. I'm like, I want to hear it with good production
Right.
because I hear it. And I'm like, I don't. Beyond that, whatever happens is a bonus. But it
Mhm.
wasn't no real, no point to of it succeeding or it pushing us to another level or whatever. I'm kind of
Right.
beyond right now.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
I got the
That's
same attitude. Trust me, it's just like it's like, all right, if people like it, then that's an added bonus. And I have zero expectations of anything anymore, So
You know.
um yeah, and I think that's the attitude to have, really, because then it's coming from a genuine place. You're not trying to, make, and I think from all of us that come from the underground, that's always been on our attitude. And it's just sometimes it's a little crazy to think that after all these years, this music's still alive, and it's probably bigger now than ever.
Oh yeah,
And
definitely.
speaking of that, I think you guys, with the new record coming out, I see you guys getting more um, interest than ever, and I think that's fucking awesome, because you got to show the young kids, what it's all about, and it's great to see that. And I mean, are you seeing that yourself? That you guys are starting to get a lot more interest in the band, and
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, well, now we're celebrating our 40th anniversary, and
Wow.
got the Exciter tour coming up in a month or a couple
oh
months.
fuck
Playing
yeah,
Milwaukee
that's good.
Friday, and
Yeah,
that going to Europe two more times at the end of the year, and
Wow.
nice.
that's more than we've done in the last 25 years. So I
Right.
mean,
Yeah,
I think it's definitely ramping up. And then, the second album just got repressed and re-released, and the first album is now, two different labels are putting it out. One's pressing it on vinyl and colored vinyl, and another label is pressing it on cassette for the first Terror Symmetry EP on cassette along with the first album. That's never been done before, and that's coming out now. And
Right.
mhm.
yeah, I mean, the digital sales and the physical sales are, I mean, I'm not trying to be a big-headed whatever, but the physical and digital sales are at an all-time high right now.
Very
That's
nice.
awesome.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I
That's
figure, yeah, 40 years. I tell people, I say, well, I'm 60 now. By the time I'm 80, Hellwitch will be a popular band.
and I bet you'll still be running about 150 miles an hour. You're not
Yeah.
going to slow down any.
No, I still feel pretty good and pretty enthusiastic, and I still have a positive attitude, and certain things have changed, of course, with the generations that are younger than we are, and
Yeah.
takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's it's good. It's
But
cool.
we talk about, it seems like there's almost this I don't know if you can even call it a resurgence in death metal, but it looks like the newer death metal bands and the younger kids. I had one in here the other day. It was great to see this kid playing guitar and the stuff he was playing, and he's into death metal. But it seems like that generation is really looking to you guys, you too, and your bands, and a lot of the guys. We talk about this all the time on this channel. A lot of the bands, they're looking to you guys as mentors, it seems, and they're trying to recreate what you all had.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's good. I mean, I don't know, I may be wrong, but it seems like the originality, is somewhat lacking these days. But
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
that leads me to, well, it sadly, I started when there was still a lot of uncovered territory, uncharted,
Right.
territory, and
Yeah.
now everything's kind of been done. So I mean,
Yeah.
what can kids really do? And I mean, I look at it as though, well, you know what? There's an infinite combination of notes you can come up with. So come up with something interesting, make it spark,
Right.
make it sound different. And if you can do that, you have some talent, but I mean, I hear a lot of things where, oh, this is like, these guys are like Carcass. It's like, I forgot there's some band I heard and I'm like, this is like Carcass Jr., and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a lot of that. And I'm just like, man, I'm like, what, and they're popular, that stuff's popular.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
It's
whatever.
funny you say that because I see the same thing, and it's like, these kids are just copying what, we all did back in the day, but which is fine. It could be copying something worse, that's for sure, but yeah, I'd rather see, like, and I think for all of us, it was we were just speaking our own voice, and we wanted to create what, the band that we had in our head that we weren't hearing, and
Right.
but yeah, I think like Roger said, I think a lot of these kids are just kind of, looking at us because I whether it's rock and roll or heavy metal, you know, the music that is comes from a genuine place is the stuff that will stick around,
Right.
and the people
Right.
will always kind of, because you look, there's a lot of stuff, fads and things that have gone through the years, and it's like kind of where are they now, and
Right.
so
Well,
yeah, but yeah,
and when Pat said, they're popular, if you think about, back in the 80s with the punk scene and death metal, that would have been the kiss of death, being popular. That
Yeah.
it
yeah,
seems like
yeah,
that would have been the kiss of death.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. If, I guess whatever you works, but I mean, hear of bands, you know, actively thinking, well, if we do this and we make our songs a little more this way, we'll go further and all
Right.
this. Like, oh, that's so terrible. Like, what
Right.
a, how, you know, just not genuine people. You're not being true and you're not being genuine. You're just trying to come up with something to move you ahead, which I
yeah,
guess
yeah,
that if that's what you want, if that's really what you're looking to do, then
Right.
do it. But I mean, like I said, for me, I never really had a formula, or a real, a plan or whatever. Just I do it, and
Right.
I make sure it sounds good to me and sounds very interesting and sounds real and authentic and
Yeah.
you know, hear it and it's exciting and that's what I think it all should be.
See, and
yeah,
Alex, this is gonna be our public service channel, so all these younger guys and these younger bands watching you all say this kind of stuff, when they ask you, like, "What's it like, the old school death metal?" They're seeing it now, and they're seeing what you all have to say about it, so they're gonna be different. That's
Yeah.
our public service to the world.
Oh, yeah. And the one thing I always say, come up with something and it sounds like another band, don't use it.
Yeah, don't do that, do
yeah,
something different.
yeah,
Pat's
yeah.
looking at me like, "What the fuck is he talking about?"
That's harder and harder to do all the time. I know. That's tough. That's a tough thing.
So
Yeah.
let's I guess let's get into like what's coming up next. Like you were saying about the Exciter tour, and you got some stuff coming up in Europe. So can you tell us a little bit about the dates and what you got going on?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're playing Milwaukee the day after tomorrow, and then we do the Exciter tour with Exciter and Midnight and Wraith starting July 15th. And then the last two shows of that tour, which are like August, I think, 1st and 2nd. Um, I'm sorry, August 3rd and 4th. We're not doing those. We start our own headlining tour for like a week. Right, when they're doing the last two dates of that tour. So we're, on that package for a couple weeks. and then we leave that and we do like a week of headlining shows, down the East Coast of the United States, ending in Atlanta. And
Nice.
and then in October we're playing the Keep It True Rising Festival in Wurzburg, Germany, and
Oh,
then
cool.
we're
Wow.
headlining another festival November 23rd in Frankfurt, with some pretty underground bands. And then at that time, we're also doing a show in Holland. So
Mm.
Oh,
going
Busy.
to Wurzburg in October, then back to Frankfurt in November.
oh, awesome.
That's
And
good.
the Exciter thing's super cool. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know about you back in the day, but my introduction to the underground metal was Exciter, Heavy Metal Maniac, Kill 'Em All, and Merciful Fate Melissa. Because before that was Priest and Maiden, and I heard those records, those three albums, and that just completely changed my life in a lot of ways because I just went down that road and
Oh yeah.
yeah, that's super cool to go
Yeah.
out with Exciter. I think
Yeah.
is awesome.
Me and Heavy Metal Maniac. That was wow. I remember when I heard
Yeah.
Banshee, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And World
Violence and Force, Feel the Knife, all that shit,
Yeah.
the what?
I said Violence and Force, Feel the
Oh
Knife, all that stuff is
yeah.
fantastic, man. Still, amazing albums.
Oh
Yeah.
man, yeah. Cider, like really, yeah. I mean, it's an honor and a joy and an honor and a dream to play with Exciter every night. Like that's if if
Yeah.
you would have, well, whenever even now, you're going to tour with Exciter, I'd say, yeah, right. I wish. I'm like, well,
That's
how
awesome,
how
man.
much do they charge me? How much? I, hey, could they cut me? I'll open for.
Oh, man. I tell you, I'd love to do an Immo Hellwitch tour. That would be
Oh,
sick, man.
yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah.
Immolation is one of my favorite things in life, always has been. And
Cool, man.
I mean, it just Immolation is again, well, not again, but Immolation is one of those bands that has a sound like no other. And I've always noticed that, and that always drew me to Immolation. Always. I've always said, oh, well, even in interviews all through the 80s, Immolation,
Mm.
like they don't sound like anybody. Insanity from California. They don't devastate
Saturday, oh, man, yeah,
Chicago.
fuck yeah. Devastation, yeah.
Yeah, I've
Cool.
always promoted Immolation always, and
Wow.
still love it, man. Still love it.
I
Love.
would we would love that. That would be great,
Oh, I'd be honored. It would be my pleasure.
But I guess yeah. Any last words? That anything else you want to spread? That you got coming up, and
You,
do you see
Pat,
any
you
new
look
albums?
really tired, man. I'm just messing around. I said, you look really tired.
Yeah.
I'm the tired one. I've been up with a toddler, since
Oh
the
yeah.
morning.
No, Pat looks like he's ready to roll.
Yeah. I woke up early because I'm kind of nervous. I got to fly to Milwaukee tomorrow, and I'm
Oh,
things
yeah.
I don't want to forget anything. And then I'm, emailing the promoter asking, questions that I should have asked a month ago. And you know how it is. But, that and yeah, it's been a long day. But no, I'm not tired. I'm grateful to be here. And yeah, I mean, I've got 2 new songs written. One of them's already demoed. And I've already, sent the demo to Listenable Records, our label. And he's
Awesome.
excited. And we're contracted to do another album on Listenable Records. So
Nice.
Oh, that's
we're
awesome, man.
excited about that. And yeah, I mean, I'm a Gibson guy. I got my you could probably see that here, hopefully. I don't
Yeah.
know. My
What
85,
what year is that V, by the way? What year is that guitar?
that's the 85 XPL with the with the hockey stick,
Yeah, yeah. Because that's pretty obscure to see that headstock with the flying V's. It's
Yeah.
yeah,
like the Explorer headstock on the V. Which is
that's
cool.
they called it the XPL, and it was pretty limited, and that is heavier than any other flying V that Gibson made.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, I knew it sounded. I have 3 flying V's, all 84, 85, and this one sounds
Mhm.
better than the others. And I finally one day I put them on the bathroom scale, and this one's like 2 pounds heavier than any of the.
Oh, wow.
And I'm
Wow.
like, that there you go. You got that extra wood, brings us
Yeah, yeah.
to the Les Paul thing, you got
Yeah,
that
yeah.
there, and it gives you a little more sustain and resonance. And yeah, man, I love the flying V's. They're light enough to not kill me, and
Mm.
very comfortable to play, and just love them. Love the flying V.
Yeah,
Nice.
me too. I'm a flying V guy myself, so
Get far out. I see that all the time, man. Very
yeah, yeah.
good, good taste.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Awesome, man. Well, man, that's all great stuff to hear, man. I can't wait to hear another record, and I wish you guys all the luck on the
Absolutely.
Exciter tour and all the European stuff. That's man, that's fucking awesome to hear this, and yeah,
thanks, man.
I'm really happy for you, man.
Sounds like a
Uh,
good busy
yeah,
summer coming up.
Huh?
yeah,
Sounds like a good busy summer coming up.
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
stuff.
Things are definitely ramping up, and
Yeah.
this will be the true test at 60 years old to see how much more I can take.
You got it, man. You got it covered. You got
Yeah,
it covered.
yeah.
yeah. No, I'm in, knock on an inverted cross, but yeah, no real health problems to speak of, so I'm good to go. I should be good to go for at least a couple more decades till I'm up there with Keith.
There you go.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
So before we let you go, is where can we find like a website or Facebook, Instagram, any of those things?
Oh,
Where we can find Hellwitch.
yeah. Well, our social media sites are Facebook. On Facebook, it's Hellwitch Official 666, because
Mhm.
about a year ago we had Hellwitch Official, and that has been hijacked. That got hijacked about a year ago. So
Oh,
now
yeah.
Oh wow,
666, and the Instagram is Hellwitch Official, and the we have a band camp. You could just search Hellwitch, and of course you know uh store envy. There's a Hellwitch store envy, and of course hellwitch.com. You can find out all the latest things and buy merchandise at hellwitch.com.
Nice.
And
awesome.
our emails are on there, and the PO box, which Hellwitch has had for probably about 37 years now, still have the same email address. I still
Nice.
print zines. I still spread ads. I still write to people with stamps and envelopes regularly.
Oh man, that's awesome.
You
Awesome,
don't see
man.
that
Well,
much anymore.
Huh?
You don't
yeah.
see that much anymore. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, and yeah, and now there is like a scene of the dudes that just do snail mail, and it's funny. This one guy, Paul from La Muerte zine in Texas, he was telling me the other day, he's like, "Yeah, I'm doing my new issue," and he goes, "I'm taking my email address out of the magazine."
That's great. Uh, awesome, man.
And he was like,
That's funny.
"I'm not going to put an email address in my magazine." That's
Fucking poser. That's poser shit.
exactly.
Email posers.
Yeah, he's keeping it real, man. He's keeping it brutal. Yeah.
Hardcore lick a stamp, send it on its way.
Well, send my stamp back so I can reuse it.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, and
Yeah, those are the days, man.
I still have my 10,000 plus VHS concert bootleg collection going and for sale and trade,
Oh
which
yeah.
behind me. These are all, as you see, old school VHS drawers full of every death, thrash, punk, hardcore, black metal, rock band bootleg promo video that you could think of are all back here.
Oh
Holy
nice.
cow.
That's good to see you're still doing that too after all these years, man. Because I remember back in the day, you had like you still had the biggest collection out of anybody. I think
Thank
you
you.
know.
Thanks for the noticing, Alex.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. All right, Pat. Well, man, thanks for coming on, and you can hang for a second if you want after we
Yeah.
end this. And
Yeah,
yeah, man, fuck yeah, man. So everybody, look out.
appreciate it, and thank you, Alex. It was I'm honored that you guys asked me because I
Yeah.
mean we're like the,
Honor's all here, man.
we're like the Rodney Dangerfield of death metal. No respect.
Yes.
Hey, it was great meeting you. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
You too. Super cool. Great. Had a great time. Thanks.
All right.
Hey, thanks.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Pat.
Thanks.
Hail Satan.